But speaking of antagonists, in the Batman, we got that little glimpse of Barry Keoghan's. By the way, that is how it's pronounced, even though it's spelled Keegan, whatever.
Yeah.
Our friend of the show, Luke Tuckshear, over in the UK, did a little research and found out that it's pronounced Barry Keoghan. So we got that tease of Barry Keoghan's Joker in the Batman, which, if I'm being honest, is still that part landed with a thud again for me on the second viewing. I can't get into that tease, and I want to. I love me some Batman and Joker, and we're going to talk about this scene that got released today because I love that. But the tease in the movie with Joker and Riddler laughing, and what becomes more important the fewer of them you have, a friend, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I was supposed to get the goosebumps that we all got when Gary Oldman's Jim Gordon pulls out the Joker card at the end of Batman Begins.
Yeah.
But to me, I had none of that the first time. And I was secretly hoping when we saw it again, I'm like, now that I know it's coming, let me just try to enjoy it a little more. Let me put myself in that headspace. And I just still couldn't do it. But today, we got a much more detailed look at that Joker, though. Matt Reeves, through that viral website, the ratalada.com, that Riddler website that they set up as a companion to the film, which is a real website. You go to it, it has that same cool, creepy green font, and you have some riddles to answer. I don't know if you did any of that, Brett, but it was pretty cool.
YouTube.
You did YouTube. Yeah, you had to answer some riddles, and it unlocked the video of a deleted scene, a 5-minute scene between Robert Pattinson's Joker interrogating Barry Keoghan's Riddler. So, Brett, what
you mean
think?
Robert Pattinson's Batman?
That's what I said.
Barry, you did not say that.
No, I did.
Oh, you're right. You're right. No, I'm wrong. So that deleted. We actually alluded to this, I think, like a week or so ago on the show, because Matt Reeves had been talking about it, and he said, "I'm going to release it soon." There's a deleted scene. So yes, I watched it today. It's 5 minutes, which is actually a nice sizable chunk. I loved it.
I like the suspense.
I loved it. It was a really cool way to see them interact. It's a way we haven't seen them interact in any film thus far. Also implied some history between the two already.
Yeah, he says it's our 1-year anniversary.
Yeah, I think look at his first line is it's our 1-year anniversary, and then he kind of criticizes him for only bringing him papers.
Yeah.
But I loved the very Clarice Hannibal Lecter kind of vibe of it, where Batman's consulting him, to learn some more information about the current serial killer that he's tracking, the Riddler. It was a really great way to frame it. I could talk for days about this. I mean, the cinematography in the Batman was out of this world, just a visual delight, and I loved the way that they framed and shot this scene.
And he's sort of obscured through most of it.
He's obscured for probably like 95% of it. Yeah.
And you see the silhouette. You could see that there's green hair. You could see that there's some stuff around the mouth, but you can't quite make it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all that was really just tremendous. I loved the back and forth between them. It was really well written. And then, what did you think? And then, because then I think there is a piece here that I think you feel a little different than me on.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. So,
give me the
overall. I really dig the hell out of the scene. I like the dialogue, the interplay. I like that this Joker seems to be really, really intelligent, hyper intelligent, with the way that he psychologically sort of undresses Batman in a way too, and how he points out the sort of interesting similarities and dualities between Batman and the Riddler, and how they have a lot more in common than Batman even seems to grasp. And, listen, I love everything about the way it's written and acted, but the area that I have a hard time with is the design. It's a little much for me. Honestly, the diseased, weird, crazy, monstrous look. He's it. I I'm having a hard time picturing a whole movie watching this guy as the villain, and how would he look with the makeup on? He's gonna look like a monster, which maybe is what they're going for. Reeves is going for more of like a horror vibe here, possibly. But yeah, the design, like I was wishing he was a little less monstrous looking. But yeah, overall, I thought it was all thumbs up. But what did you think of his design?
So, I mean, number one, shout out to the makeup effects department on the Batman. I mean, between the complete transformation they gave to Colin Farrell as the Penguin,
Mm-hmm.
and whether you like this or not, the
Yeah.
makeup is just phenomenal
Yep.
on him. So I like that you brought up the horror element.
Yes.
I've seen a little bit of discourse saying it's like in a way, too similar to Heath Ledger's, which I don't think I agree with. I get like the
Yeah, I
scarred
mean,
face,
some of
but
he was making little
right.
sounds like it was a little, but it's okay.
Yeah, there was people saying that it was like a knockoff of Heath Ledger. I actually think if you really watch it and listen, his while the tonality may be a little similar at points, he actually has quite a different cadence in his
Oh
speech
yeah.
patterns. At least that I kind of picked up on that. I do love you mentioned the intelligence actually, because that was actually really cool. I'm sorry, I'm going off topic. We were talking about the
No,
look,
no, no.
and I just like jump back. But I also really enjoyed that the back and forth between them, usually in the other films, was always just like, oh, you're a psychopathic murderer and you're
Mhm.
garbage, and it's just very antagonistic, and I liked that Batman kind of needed him. It already
Yes.
started this sick back and forth need that it,
Yeah. Yeah.
persistent
Yeah. For
in the
sure.
comics, where like Batman, he has so many opportunities to end this and kill him and stop him from going on these murder sprees over and over again, and he can't, because he's sick as well. And they already planted that this early on,
Yeah.
which kudos to Reeves for that. But anyway, back to the look. So yeah, I saw some people saying the look's over the top. Number one, you need to do something different, right? And this
Yeah.
is pretty different, I think, than any other iteration we've seen in film. But again, I want to go back. I love that you mentioned the horror element.
Yes.
That's an aspect that has been missing from the majority. Some people argue with me. It's been missing from the majority of the Batman films.
Yeah.
That horror element hasn't quite been there, where it is very, very pervasive in the comics.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this one before. We always go back to Death in the Family. We're talking about Court of Owls.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
listen, that was one of the most recent great comic runs. And listen, that's the one. If you're not familiar with it, the Joker voluntarily has his face skin cut off by, I think, the doll maker. And the Gotham police get a hold of it, and they for some reason keep it in the Gotham City Police Department
Like you do.
instead of discarding it. I don't know what you do with just rotting skin, but anyway, they leave it in like a little thing. And later on in the spoilers for that, later on in the run, the Joker returns from wherever the hell he's been, because I think he just disappears. He kills a whole floor of police officers in the police department and steals his face back. And what he decides to do is kind of like strap it around his head and like staple it back to his face. So it's gross and gruesome and very scarred and
Yeah.
disgusting looking. And yeah, they really play with that. And even I think in what is it what is it, a serious something on a serious earth, it's that I'm screwing it up, it's something, a serious something, it's one of the like side stories in the
Yeah.
comics, like not part of the main canon, and they do a very heavily scarred, disfigured kind of Joker in that too. So I definitely think there's a lot of comic inspiration from the
Yeah.
character and the look. So just whether you like it or not, it does come from a place of someone who cares about and likes the source material.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like I watched it with Jesse too. As I said, you have to see this. We got the hint of it in the movie. We need to watch the clip now. And yeah, like it's very off-putting, which I think could also be part of the initial reaction, and where people just want to kind of like put it off. But it
Yeah.
is it's disturbing. It may be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You talk about his hands, the dried blood all over them. I mean, like serious scarring.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I'm not going to come out and go like and say like, oh my god, it's my favorite look. It's perfect. I know I'm very hyperbolic and I'm very obviously very high on the scene, but
Yeah.
I think it's something cool. And like I always say, this is something even I called you out a little bit on it. You weren't sold on the Batman suit for the Batman Robert
Oh,
Pattinson
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in the trailer, but I think you came around to it seeing it in action.
For sure.
And
Yes.
yeah, we saw a 5-minute scene where he's sitting and he's mostly blurry and
Mostly
obscured behind the
obscured. Yeah.
glass. Yeah, the entire time. But I think you got to wait till you see it in full action in a full length film. And listen, it might not change your mind, but I always give the benefit of the doubt. Let me see it in like full context.
Yeah.
So yeah. So overall, though, I like it. I think it's really cool. Now, one of the things though I do want to bring back up. We talked about this last week with Matt Reeves' comments. He said, "Don't. This does not mean that I am making the main villain the Joker in the second movie.
Yeah.
But the fact that they cast somebody and shot the scene means that he's probably going to be around." And I was wondering what you think on this. And for our listeners, if let's say they do end up doing a trilogy, which I feel like will likely happen, we do the whole trilogy thing.
Mm-hmm.
How would you feel if the Joker is never the main villain throughout the entire trilogy because like people have said he's overused or however they
Yeah.
put it, it's redundant. But how would you feel if he was just kind of in the background? Batman does use him as a Hannibal Lecter type, or we just kind of see him maybe interact with some of the other villains locked up. Maybe he starts a big riot in Arkham, but never becomes like the main overarching villain. How would you feel about that?
I would feel right as rain. Yeah, I feel like we've right as rain, Brett. Yes, I'm bringing that phrase back. All right, it's 1953 all over
It's
again.
for the birds.
This is for the birds. Anyway,
Right.
wow, we got to tell that story on the show
One day.
But yeah, I would feel right as rain because I've had an ass full of the Joker, and having him be the Hannibal Lecter type, someone who Batman has to interface with from time to time to try and figure out a psychopath or to connect to an old, element of the criminal underworld where like Joker knows these people, so Batman has to find out how do I get an in with so and so, or having him be just sort of a supporting villain as opposed to a main villain, I think is a great way to sidestep the overuse of Joker and to keep him sort of fresh and interesting. So yeah, if somehow this works out where he's never the primary villain, but we spend a little bit of time with him throughout these next few movies, I'd be totally cool with that. How about you? Would you feel cheated as a Batman fan to not have him be the main bad?
No, I think we have seen him so much, right? He's been iterated on over and over again, but it feels wrong to not have him at all.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are probably like, I could just do without him altogether, but he really is such an important part to the Batman mythos, and I think he is. Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't. It's hard to see one without the other, right?
Yeah.
It really is for me. But yeah, to have them like that, or maybe to maybe even if they maybe don't keep him totally relegated to the background, but like what if? How would you feel? I just thought of this right now. How would you feel if they did like almost like some kind of like road trip movie with that?
Oh, like he has to transport him.
Yeah, or like some kind of like where they have to like work together in a weird way, and that I don't know. Like
I mean,
I kind of flip it on its head a little bit. I think that's the way to go. If you're going to use him this time, you need to flip it on its head in a pretty drastic way. So either doing this Hannibal Lecter thing, I think is really cool. Like I would be totally into that. There's a lot of great other villains in the rogue gallery. Get that taste of Joker. But yeah, it would be cool to have them where they have to have like an uneasy alliance for like the majority of the film, and then he still does not end up being the overarching villain, but he's more prominent. Could be a cool thing.
It could be a cool thing. It could be a cool thing, and I'm with you on. It's very exciting to have a fully psychopathic, terrifying, psychotic clown as the Joker. That like the horror element of it all, the way he just seems to be this sick genius who really delights in these really dark types of things. You know, he really gets off on pushing Batman's buttons, and that the laugh at the end, by the way, you know, we got to talk about the laugh, because every Joker at some point we got to hear how he laughs. I thought Barry Keown's laugh was like hair-raisingly stressful. You know,
Yeah.
I thought like, woof, oh wow, I was really unnerved by him, and
Yeah, I
yeah,
like the more like the higher pitched like kind of laugh that he did at the end, but I even like just like the little ones that he would kind of toss
little
in
giggles.
like, at the yeah, like they were very everything about him was super off putting. And
Yeah.
you know, while Heath Ledger was definitely off putting at times, I was more like enraptured by him in a way. But with this, I was
Mhm.
just I mean, you could even see the way like Robert Pattinson looks at him, like he
Yes.
almost seems borderline uncomfortable.
And he's a little scared of him. You kind of get the sense
Yeah.
he's a little bit like, this guy is
But
trouble.
I loved the write. I just really loved the writing. I loved like all of his lines he threw at him. Like he even said, I think he even says, yeah, he says to Batman, he says like, "You think I get off on this or whatever?" And he's like, "Don't you?" And then it's good, man. It's really
Yeah.
it was great, right? A really well written scene. If it was
Really,
not as
really good.
well written, you know, could have been a disaster. Could have been really off putting. But the writing is just spot on.
Yes, it is.